Hi guys, and welcome to another batch of mini reviews. If you don't know, this series is where I basically review 7 films in the time that it would normally take me to review just one. Although we do have a TV show in there as well today, sue me. It's taken me about 3 or 4 months to collate this particular group of films, a definite sign that I am watching far less random things in between my main reviews at the moment, but from year to year, the amount of horror that I consume does tend to go up and down. I'm sure it'll pick up again soon or eventually. But in terms of how I'm going to go about today's video, I'm going to take these films in the exact order in which I watched them. And as we're going along, we will have a film of the week and also a stinker of the week. So we will begin with a film that I probably watched about 4 months ago at this point. It's a minor miracle that I can actually remember it enough to talk about it. First up, we have The Mortuary Collection, which is a horror anthology film. I do love my horror anthologies, whether it's Amicus or VHS or one of the more one-off collections. I think my favourite one-off horror anthology is Tales of Halloween. But a few months ago, I watched The Mortuary Collection. It's got a wraparound story where a little girl goes to this house hoping to get a part-time job. I think it's a funeral parlour or something that looks like a house from the outside. It's run by this one guy, played by Clancy Brown, and he starts telling scary stories to the little girl, and those are the segments that we end up watching in the movie. There's 3 main stories, and then there's one smaller one, and funnily enough, it's the smallest story in this collection, which I thought was the best. So there's like a pickpocket at a party, and she ends up discovering something hideous in the bathroom. I really liked that, as short as it was, but the 3 larger stories are all kind of mediocre for me. The first one involves this guy who sleeps with all these girls at college, and he's having the time of his life, but then he comes across this girl who starts making his life a misery. And I didn't have a problem with the very obvious messaging in this story, but the actual horror on offer didn't do a lot for me. I feel like I've seen things like this before. And you know, I'm not going to go into what's in the second and the third main stories, but I don't remember them being particularly great either. I think the third one, the final one, might be the best, like a serial killer running around an apartment or something. But this whole collection, it doesn't really have one standout story that I can hang my hat on and say, oh, I really enjoyed that. That made it all worthwhile. The entire film is very average to me, but you might like it more than I do. I did notice that the Rotten Tomatoes score for this film is like 95%, which is crazy to me. I'm only going to give it 2.5 out of 5 because that just reflects how much I enjoyed it. But it's not the stinker of the week. We do have at least one more film to come, which is worse than this. Next up, we have Bound for Vengeance, and it just so happens this is our film of the week, which may come as a bit of a surprise given the more famous names of things that are on the thumbnail, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was a bit of a desperation pick from what I can remember. I think I'd spent like 20 minutes scrolling through my various streaming platforms and I couldn't decide on anything, and in the end it was like, oh, for God's sake, let's just pick any old random piece of crap. And I landed on this film. I think the main reason I really enjoyed it is because it's got such an original story. So what we've got here is a young woman who is kidnapped by this guy, and she's tied up in a basement, and somehow she turns the tables on this guy and ties him to the bed, whereas she's now free. And all this happens in like the first 5 minutes, and I'm thinking to myself, oh God, please don't let it be the case that she's just going to torture him now for like 90 minutes. It's going to be like hard candy. No, what happens is she finds out off him that he's got like 6 or 7 other girls tied up in various houses around the county. And so she bundles him into a car tied up, and she forces him to take her around to all these other places in the hopes of rescuing all these girls before it's too late. And I think there's a good reason why she's doing this and not just going to the police, but I can't remember. Maybe they're on a clock. I don't know. But there's a lot of tension in this because you've no idea what she's going to find as she gets to each place. Like, will she turn up somewhere and the girl will be dead? Or Maybe she'll find girls who've just gone completely crazy. Maybe she'll stumble across an accomplice of this kidnapper. So it's completely random each time, it seems, that she gets to a new location. And at no point during this film did my brain go into sleep mode. I was totally engaged all the way through. I think the quality stays really good right until the end. The resolution of the film is satisfying, I would say. And yeah, this is a really good film. I'm going to give it 4.5 out of 5. I don't think I've ever heard anybody mention it or talk about it. It's just one of those things that maybe you should check out. And we go straight from the film of the week to the stinker of the week with I Spit on Your Grave 3. Now, a few years ago, I did a full review of the 2010 remake, which is like the first film in this new sequence of I Spit on Your Graves, and I absolutely detested it. I gave it 1.5 out of 5, which I thought was a very generous score at the time. Funnily enough, though, it turned out to be one of my most popular reviews that I've ever done. The last time I checked, I think it's got like 11,000 views. When I think of all the really good films I've talked about on this channel that have done nowhere near that level of business, it just kind of makes me shake my head at the vagaries of YouTube. But even knowing that this franchise is clearly a winner in terms of potential clicks and views, I've still never been able to face reviewing the rest of the series. Just not worth it. Not even for 10,000 views a video. Maybe if it was like 1 million views or something, maybe I would watch these films, but no, just not interested. I am at least prepared to do a mini review of part 3 because I did randomly watch it a while back. I think it was an afternoon off work. I put it on. I was in a funny mood that day. Actually, I'll tell you what it was. I realised that the same actress who's in the 2010 remake comes back for this third one. She's not in the second one, but she returns for whatever reason. And I guess I was curious to see what they'd done with the character. How has she evolved since those experiences from the lakeside setting where she was, sexually abused and all that stuff? As it turns out, I needn't have bothered. This film is not concerned with character arcs or character journeys, anything like that. It's just out to shock you, So this character, I can't remember if it's the actress who's called Sarah or whether it's the character who's called Sarah, but we'll just call her Sarah. She goes to this self-help group in part 3. She meets this friend, this other girl, and together they go around beating up bad men and sometimes killing them, and then the story kind of goes on from there. But I was bored throughout the whole thing. I think there's a corrupt cop in there somewhere, and I can't even remember how it ends. I just remember that I didn't have a good time with this. There's not even the over-the-top gory deaths that you get with the 2010 remake, which some people probably enjoyed. I didn't, but this time around you don't even really get that, aside from one death in a warehouse, I think. But it's pretty tame stuff. It's a complete waste of time. I'm going to give it the same score that I gave the remake from 2010. So I'm going to give it 1.5 out of 5. And it's only getting that because I do appreciate the efforts that this particular actress has gone through in these films. I'm glad she's still getting work. And I'm also glad that at least she got her money this time without having to run around in the forest naked and screaming and pretending to be sexually abused, because that can't have been easy for an actress. This time around, she doesn't really have to do any of that. It probably would have been a pretty easy paycheck for her, even though it's a crap movie. Next up, we have Nothing But the Night. So this is by far the oldest film I'll be covering today. It's a Lee and Cushing collaboration. I had intended to do a full review of this at the time that I put it on, but by the end of it, I just felt really uninspired and I didn't want to do it. It's quite a complicated plot. So we've got this orphanage on a Scottish island, and all the trustees of the orphanage have started to be bumped off by an unknown killer. And we end up with all these random characters heading towards the island because it's thought that there might be more murders. The children themselves might be in danger. So we've got like a journalist heading to the island, a copper, one of the parents of the kids from the orphanage, she's going as well. So all these people just heading for the island. Gravity's taking all the characters there. But it's not the easiest story to follow for most of it, and I just wasn't massively into it. It does have an absolutely batshit ending. I think that's why I will always remember this film, because the ending is so completely out of left field. It's like, whoa, how on earth did we suddenly have this? Like, it sort of makes the film better, actually, this ending, because it just hadn't been that exciting up until then. I'm going to give this one 3 out of 5, although that might be a little bit generous. That might be my Cushing fanboyish nature coming to play there. I think some people might give this less, but it's an all right film. It's made to a reasonably good standard in terms of its directing and stuff like that. I just think the story is a little bit muddled and uninteresting for the most part. Next, we have Jurassic Park Rebirth, the latest of the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World movies. Some people might be looking at me right now and saying, well, this isn't a horror movie. Well, the true horror here is not the movie itself. It's the fact that me, the wife, and our 3 kids all went to watch this at the cinema, and it cost 80 or 90 pounds. Absolutely ridiculous. Like 5 cinema tickets, the milkshakes, the snacks, the popcorn. It seriously came very close to touching £100. My wife did pay for half of it, to be fair, so I don't feel too sorry for me, but I certainly did scratch my head a little bit when I got home and wondered whether this was a sensible way to spend money. At least the film is good. It's probably one of the better movies in this series. It's sort of a soft reboot in a way, because none of the previous actors are back for this one. Scarlett Johansson is now the big new name in Jurassic World now. And the plot is fairly simple to understand. So there's a group of people who are traveling to one of the dinosaur islands because some of them want to take blood samples from the various different species in the hope of curing cancer or whatever. Very easy to follow. It's a very colourful film. It feels like this one is taking place in the Caribbean because everything's so bright, and the jungles and the oceans all look fantastic. There's one outstanding sequence involving a T-Rex and a raft, which I thought was amazing. And the film doesn't really have much in the way of faults at all. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. And I'm glad that it made 800 million, because now we'll probably end up getting another one. But next time I may just try and sneak out of the house and go to the cinema alone. Next, we have The Last Descent. So this is based on a true story. So what happened was, there were a group of friends who went potholing in a cave system in Utah called the Nutty Putty Caves. And this one guy, he went crawling down this random chute, but it was a really tight squeeze, and he was going in head first. He probably regretted his decision quite quickly, but to his horror, he came to a dead end. And he was facing downwards as well, so there was no way for him to maneuver his way back out of this chute. He was just like face down, facing a dead end, and there was nothing he could do. All he could do was shout for his friends to come and help him, basically, but they couldn't help at all. So they went and got the authorities in, rescuers, professionals, but even they couldn't get this guy out. This chute that he'd gone down, it was so tight, and the angles meant that even when they set up like this pulley system with ropes, they still couldn't pull him out of there. So after like a day and a half, he died, and they ended up blowing the entrance of the caves up so that nobody else could go in and suffer the same fate. So they couldn't even get this guy's body out. So this guy, to this day, his body is still in there. Really sad story. He was only like in his mid-20s. He was a medical student, I think. Now, this film is a reenactment of this whole incident. So we get to watch this guy going down this chute, and it's really claustrophobic. It's horrible just watching, actually, knowing what's going to happen. Now, I do think the rest of the film could have done a lot better in terms of the human drama side of this. I wanted to see more of the girlfriend's reaction. I wanted to see more of the friend, sprinting for help and the angst that he would have been going through. But instead of getting that, there's a lot of dream sequences where the victim is like walking through a meadow and hoping to see his girlfriend, but in dream form, like we're watching those Maximus scenes from Gladiator or something like that. It's just not a massively entertaining film once you get past the original incident. Now, when it comes to the Nutty Putty thing that happened, There are quite a few mini documentaries on YouTube, and I kind of feel like you're best off just watching those. They're like 10 or 15 minutes long. They give you all the information about this situation that you could possibly hope to get. Watching this version that's like an hour and 40 minutes and seeing actual actors do it all, I just didn't get enough out of it personally to make it worthwhile. So I'm going to give it 2 out of 5. Finally today, we've got Alien Earth. Now, I haven't seen all of this because at the time of doing this video, they've only released 2 of the 8 episodes. So I've seen 25% of the show, but I don't mind giving you a quick mini review of what I've watched so far. I am a diehard Alien fan. I need to say that. Not only do I love all the movies, I regularly read the unofficial novels. I've got 2 Alien t-shirts. For me, this is like the biggest release of the year, Alien Earth. And as you would expect from the title, a lot of the story does take place on Earth, but there's still plenty of scenes on like other planets and various space stations and what have you. I do think the first episode is a little bit shaky. I'm not sure it's quite addictive enough for people who are maybe trying this out, but who are not usually into Alien, that there's a bit too much time spent introducing these half-synthetic, half-human hybrids, and it goes on a little bit too long for me. I mean, it doesn't bother me, big fan of the whole franchise, who's going to watch the whole series anyway. But for other people, maybe, I'm kind of uncertain as to whether the first episode will grab enough people. But with the second episode, that's when the show really hits the ground running and it starts becoming really exciting. So we've got this like tall building on Earth, this massive apartment block. A spaceship crashes into the bottom of it and the aliens get loose, and we've got like soldiers descending on the place to sort it out. The civilians in the mix who are in trouble. There's androids and other characters there, journalists and what have you. And it's just one exciting scene after another. I absolutely loved all 50 minutes of that second episode. And it's not just the aliens that are on the loose as well. These other creatures that were inside this science lab on this particular ship. So small, dangerous creatures that we've not previously seen at any point during the series. Like, it's really inventive, these new monsters that they've come up with, but they're all quite small in scope. None of them overshadow the main aliens, which is probably a good idea. But I've no idea where the series is going after this second episode. Normally when you watch like a limited TV show of like 6 or 8 episodes, once you've watched the first episode, you'll have a general idea in your head as to what the structure of the rest of it will be. I've no idea after watching the first 2 episodes of this, which is quite an exciting position to be in. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching episode 3 next week, and certainly I'll be there for the rest of it. But if you want a score from what I've seen so far, I guess I could give it a solid 4 out of 5. I might have gone higher, but for my misgivings about some of the first episode. But really, really cool that we've finally got an Alien TV show, and definitely enjoying it. Right, so we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining me for another batch of mini reviews. Just to recap, our film of the week was Bound to Vengeance, and the stinker of the week was I Spit on Your Grave 3. So thank you for joining me. I'll catch you all again next time. Bye-bye.